Greetings all, welcome if you're new, welcome back if you're not. We're going to talk about the ubiquitous AliExpress Ibex 450 soft pannier racks that are out there. Simple, couple little headaches with drilling plastic, but we'll talk about that. They're about 2 millimeters thick aluminum, pretty well done. I'll have a link to this particular one in the description, but there's a bunch of them out there. None of my links are attached to anything. Everything you get here is unedited, unsponsored, unrefined, but hopefully helpful. Anyway, these racks are fairly simple. There's 2 mounting bolts up here, which mount into the frame. You have to remove this plastic piece. We'll talk about that. Then you've got an extension that you attach from here over to the attach points for your rear foot pegs. This one's I've removed. The other side has an additional component to offset or stand off from the exhaust. This is one of the ways to tell the left from the right. The right has these 2 lower bolt holes. You'll attach these. The one thing also to remember is that on the right hand side, you get the same design here. It attaches, they just slide right up under here. However, because this rear foot peg is the exhaust hanger, lining up things, it can be a little tough. So just make sure, good practice, always have things as loose as you possibly can, especially on this one, on this side when you're putting it together to get everything to line up. Okay, now let's talk about those plastic pieces that you need to remove. So this is the back side of those pieces, and a few different things here we'll look at. First of all is you've got a bolt here that is accessed from the outside. There's outside the bike, and a bolt here from the top that you can access after you remove the seat. You also have a clip that slides. This guy slides in, and this white plastic piece will pop off, so watch that. And there's another one on the end here. We'll show that later. There's also these 3 tabs that slide into slots in the frame. You have 2 push pins that come up into here, and they're called something else, I'm sure. And then your classic rubber grommet component. So that gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different fasteners for this tiny piece of plastic. This is probably my number 1 headache or pet peeve on the Ibex so far is you feel like you're working on an automobile, right? It gets a little better as you get familiar with them, but they can be a pain. If you take a look from the other side, basically the same thing. Here's your other tab over here. Again, these little plastic clips can come off. This comes in from the top, and yeah, that's about it. Pretty straightforward. One little pro tip: put some moly on any of these pieces that slide in, especially this guy and these, or petroleum jelly, moly, anything, molybdenum, anything you got. It will just make the next time you take it apart a little bit easier. So speaking of those pins, those plastic pins, and these are the guys, they come in from here and probably here too. Those pins, plugs, clips, I don't know what the hell they're called. That's the other interesting thing, or difficult, or pain in the ass thing, is that you've got 2 different types of plugs. This type, which is a 2-part, and then another plug up front that does not have this center pin. So the way this works is you have to push in the center to remove the pin. So that you can see where I've punched it with, or pushed on it with a pick, and it pushes this center piece down. And when that happens, after it's pushed in, this little piece is out of the way, and these pieces can compress. So this allows you to pull this unit out of the hole. When you're ready to reverse the process and put it back in, you push it in from this end, this pops out, you put it into the hole, and you press that back in, and it seals up. So pretty straightforward, but definitely a pain. So when you do, after you get the covers off, you'll see that the CF Moto has put some templates in there for you. In this case, you're paying attention to the round template, and I put a little mark at the center for mine to drill it. And these are pretty good. They're lined up well. This is a little bit larger. The outside diameter is a little bit larger than the standoffs that the rack comes with. And you can choose to kind of go in tighter like I did to try to get a tighter fit. I think the actual mark is on the outside is actually closer to this this outside edge here. And you can use a classic bit like that if you've got it. You've got hole punches, hole punch bits. However, your best bet, if you're ever going to work on plastics or actually not anything, are what they call a step down bit. You can get 3 or 4 of these for cheap on Amazon. It's pre-tariff, can't tell you afterwards. But they're handy, and they have their mark. This is SAE, obviously, and then you can mark your different levels so you know how deep you're going. Pretty handy. Now, when you do cut them, one of the things I would suggest is to pay attention to the angles of this plastic. And I can't really demonstrate it here in 2 dimensions, but I drilled straight down into this plastic. And when it's mounted on the bike, they actually sit at a bit of an angle relative to the front of the bolt. The front of the nut that the bolt has to be inserted into. The problem then is that the edges, this thin but interior wall ends up lining up the spacer a little bit out of whack, right? So you have to do some extra work to get it to line up. Had I come in at a little bit of an angle, basically tried to mimic the angle that was on the bike, that would not have been a problem. But end of the day, not a huge deal, just something to think about. Another little tool, this is a reaming tool, very handy if you're working with plastic. And again, dirt cheap to have one of those tools you only need once in a while, but it's a good one to have when you need it. So you can see here where the mounts went in, and I'll show you what I meant by being a little bit off on the angle. So this gap right here, right? This gap right here was because the original bolt, or the original alignment, had it coming in at a little bit of a more an angle that went straight in. But the way this is set up, the angle actually comes out just a little bit. So therefore, I had to ream out this side, and that left a gap here. Not the end of the world. It's a dirt bike. Nobody will notice but me. But anybody's particularly curious about that, something to pay attention to. All right, so that's about it. Pretty straightforward. You've got standoffs and bolts, and yeah, you got a pretty simple little rack system, which not bad for $80 and an hour's worth of work. All right, have a good one. Enjoy your bike.